Good morning, everybody. Actually, it's afternoon. I waited a long time to make this video today. Not really waited so much as just got lost in the internet for a little bit, if I'm being completely honest about it. Yeah, it happens to me too. Anyway, so how are you doing today? My name is Stephanie, and this is my little, I don't even know what you would call this. It's not really a show. It's not a series. It's just me and you and makeup, and I'm talking about stuff. That's about it. This is not a makeup tutorial. I need to make that clear right away, because while I am doing my makeup, I am not going to be talking you through how I do it, because let me tell you something. I am in no position to be giving people advice on how to do their makeup, and that's important to understand. But what I do is I hang out with you for a little bit and just talk about what's on my mind. And today, what is on my mind is conspiracy theories. Hey! Yeah, I love conspiracy theories. This was an original idea, though, I have to tell you. I couldn't think of a topic, and a friend suggested, why don't you talk about weird theories? And I'm like, why don't I talk about weird theories? So here we are. So, if you're like me and you love a good conspiracy theory, some of these you might have heard, some of them might be new to you. I'm just going to start my makeup while I'm chatting with you. First and foremost, we'll start with like the grandfather of all conspiracy theories, Area 51. Now that, that one has been talked about endlessly, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time there, but I think that the Area 51 conspiracy theories are important because they kind of show how tenacious conspiracy theories can be, even if there isn't a whole lot of evidence to support what the theory is suggesting. So with Area 51, as you probably know, the big conspiracy theory there is that Area 51 is not in fact a government, a testing ground for government aircraft and so forth, but is actually housing aliens and alien aircraft that the United States government is reverse engineering so that we can have all of that wonderful technology for ourselves. And that in itself really strikes me as amusing, because it's like, how? I mean, I don't know, because it just kind of seems to me that if they have aliens and they have alien aircraft, I don't imagine that aliens are like the best at respecting geographic boundaries. Like if the government were to say, you're allowed to be here and nowhere else. Now, unless they've killed them, of course, but so assuming we have not dead aliens and they're being held at Area 51, it seems really just wild to me that people would think that these aliens are going to just stay put with all their great technology. Like, if only we had a way to get out of here. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, so as you probably know, this all started a long time ago. And it stems from the incident in Roswell in 1947, in which something mysterious fell to the ground. And as it turned out, the government said, oh, it's just a weather balloon, you silly people, and said there was no, because people were theorizing that it was aliens, and it was alien aircraft that landed, that crashed to the earth and stuff, and the government said, oh, don't be ridiculous, it's just a weather balloon. And then not long after that, they began testing aircraft at Area 51. I think it was, 3 years later, 4 years later, maybe? Might have been longer than that. And so there was an increase in alleged UFO sightings, and again, the U.S. government is like, oh, we're just testing some aircraft. Don't be ridiculous. There's no aliens. But the legend persists. Now, in 2017, okay, so keep in mind, so for the last bazillion years, there's been this theory that, so the government is hiding aliens and alien aircraft at Area 51, and the government has steadfastly denied all of this. you know, has said there's no such thing as UFOs. We're not looking at UFOs. And then in 2017, there was some declassified information that came forth that said, oh, yeah, actually, we are looking at UFOs. And we are kind of concerned about that, despite everything we've ever said to the contrary. Which did not help, as you might imagine. It did not help this, you know, their claim that Area 51 did not, in fact, house aliens. So the myth persists to this day. Now, last year, I don't know if y'all remember this, but last year, the plan to storm Area 51 was born on Facebook. And it started off, and I would say for most people, remained a joke. You know, storm Area 51, they can't stop all of us, was the name of the Facebook page. And that was started in June of last year. And the plan was that on, I think it was September 20th of last year, they were going to storm Area 51 and basically find out what was really going on behind closed doors at Area 51. Sounds innocent enough. Why not? Let's all go have some fun. Well, then the military was like, yeah, don't do that, because if you trespass and we have to use lethal force to stop you, we definitely will. So just don't. And as far as I know, nobody did that. Nobody actually did storm Area 51, which is a good thing, because they would have ended up probably dead. But that does not mean that the myth went away, or the legend, whatever you would like to call it, went away. People still believe that there is alien things at Area 51. What do you think? Do you think that aliens are there, that the government is hiding evidence of alien life, that they are reverse engineering technology so that, you know, we can have all the biggest and the best aircraft on the whole dang planet? Or do you think that it's just people who really enjoy a good conspiracy theory, so they're just running with it? Let me know. All right, moving along. So this one is interesting because it started in my lifetime, which a lot of the most enduring conspiracy theories started before me. And I guess time will tell how long this one endures. But so there is the theory that Michael Jackson did not die. Now, I will admit, much to my shame, at one point I was like, oh my gosh, if anybody could pull off faking their death, it would definitely be Michael Jackson. And I kind of was like all in on this. I was like, yeah, that's fascinating. Of course he did. Which, okay, in my defense though, I was in the middle of an opiate addiction at the time, so draw from that what you will about me and about people who still believe that Michael Jackson is alive. Now, I remember the day he died. My sister and I had been out. My son was 6 months old, and I did not get out of the house very much. I've been a single parent from day one, and so getting out and doing anything fun was like, it almost never happened. So my sister and I, though, did manage to steal away for a couple of hours. I think we went to a Love and Logic parenting class or something like that, something really fun. And I remember I came home, and my mom was holding my son. They were watching, I think, Fox News, probably, because that's kind of my mom's jam. And my mom said to me, Michael Jackson died. And I heard her, but I didn't process what she was saying. And I was like, what? And she said, Michael Jackson died. And I'm like, this is not possible. How could, what? And so as the weeks went on, you know, it became clear, oh yeah, he's actually really dead. And then it didn't take long after that for theories to begin surfacing that he actually had faked his death. Now, the evidence people point to support this is dicey. Should we say that? It's a little dicey. Some people will point to the fact that he used lookalikes during his lifetime. Like if he knew he was going to be pursued by the paparazzi, which he always was, and he kind of wanted to make a clean getaway from whatever event he was at without being harassed and so forth, he would send out a body double to distract them, and then he would get away and go on with his day. Works spectacularly, I imagine. But people would point to that and say, well, he used body doubles during his lifetime. What's to say that he didn't do that again to throw people off the trail and he just disappeared and went on living his life? I mean, I did hear that when he arrived at the hospital that night, or I guess it would be that morning, people said he didn't look at all like Michael Jackson. Well, if he didn't have a wig on and he didn't have makeup on, I could see how that would be possible. So, I mean, okay, if he doesn't look like what you're expecting Michael Jackson to look like, that is plausible, that he did not look like Michael Jackson. Now, further along in these conspiracy theories, I mean, it gets wilder and wilder the deeper you dig on this. And I was in deep back then, you know, years and years ago when I was not in my right state of mind. Another thing that people will point to is that on the Michael album that was released after he died, they allege that there are clues on the album cover that his fans, his truest fans, will understand to mean that he's actually not dead. One of them being that across his lips, if you look very closely and you really work hard to connect the dots, he has the word alive written there. And another thing people will point to is the alleged sightings. I just cannot get all this red out of my face, so bear with me while I conceal. But anyway, the alleged sightings that have happened in various places in the world of Michael Jackson being apparently alive and well. Well, okay, there are a lot of Michael Jackson impersonators in the world, so it's entirely possible, and I would even go so far as to say probable, that people did not see Michael Jackson, they saw one of his many, many impersonators. Now, what really boggles the mind about this conspiracy theory, though, is the people who believe it call themselves the believers, and they capitalize the L-I-E in the middle of the word. They really firmly believe that anything indicating that Michael Jackson is dead is fake, and it was orchestrated by the man himself, either before he died or he's still orchestrating these things, any confirmation of his death, any documentaries and so forth. He's still orchestrating all of that from wherever he is in the world right now, where he has successfully lived undercover despite being one of the most famous people in the world, and he's orchestrating all of these things. Now, what really strikes me, now that I'm no longer addicted to opiates and I'm in a much healthier state of mind, is that for these things to be plausible, you would have to believe that Michael Jackson first had no problem just up and leaving his kids. Now, people say he still keeps in touch with them, blah, blah, blah. That's fine, but, you know, Paris, and he used to go by Blanket. He's changed his name since. I will look up his name now and include that in my description and so forth. They were very little when this happened. So it kind of blows my mind that people would assume that this person who, by all accounts, seems to have been a very good father, would just up and leave his family and be like, okay, I'll give you a call. Thanks, bye. You know, catch you on the other side. I'll keep in touch with postcards, and just leave. I mean, because his life was so closely followed that it would be impossible for him to just, you know, hide out in his house or something. Somebody would know. And so it boggles my mind to think that people honestly think so little of him that they think he would just up and leave his children and go off to live a life with more privacy, because that's what he really wanted, was privacy. Secondly, so all that aside, let's say he did do that. The number of people who would have to be in on this faked death by this time would have to number into, well into the hundreds. And if you think for a second that that many people would keep their mouths shut for this long, I'm gonna assume you have never told your best friend a secret in high school and assumed that they weren't going to tell anybody. Not even their parents, their other friends, nobody. Because as we all know, people have a hard time keeping their mouths shut, especially about something as monumental as, oh my God, Michael Jackson faked his own death and he told me about it. Isn't that awesome? I mean, somebody's gonna buckle under the pressure and spill it, and then the whole world is gonna know, oh wait, he's not actually dead. Oops. So that is interesting. And to this day, as far as I know, there are still a lot of people out there who believe this. They believe that he wanted out, man. He really wanted to just go off and live his life. So he's like, hey, I know. I'm going to pretend that I died. Wouldn't that be great? And then he did that and just went on. I'm just going to go ahead and suggest that maybe critical thinking is not the strong suit of the people who believe this. And I will include myself in that back then because, you know, I think that the conspiracy theory in this case was a very emotional response to a death that people took very personally. And, you know, the inability to cope with that death is where the conspiracy theory came from, that, oh, well, he actually didn't die. So we don't have to be sad. He didn't actually die. He's fine. He's alive and well. Autopsy photos be damned. All right. So what do you think about that one? Have you heard that theory? That's what I want to know. And what have you heard about that theory? I'm very curious. And when did you hear it? Because I want to know, because I really haven't looked into it at all recently. I'm just speaking from memory of what people were circulating, you know, several years back. And, you know, just sharing with you what I remember. I don't know how many people still discuss it, or if people have been so shamed for believing it that they just keep quiet about it now. I mean, I don't like the idea of shaming people for having a belief like that, because for some people, especially people for whom he might have been, you know, he might have made them feel seen and important and like they belonged somewhere. Like the fan communities of any kind can be very welcoming places. And if you've got people who really felt like they had nowhere to go, nowhere to belong, and then they find this community of people who, number one, really liked Michael Jackson, and number two, they also believe that he's not dead, that can be a very enticing thing for people, because it gives people that sense of not being alone and of belonging somewhere. So I don't know. I don't know if there are still people who believe it. I don't know if there are still people who talk about it. I'm sure there are, because these things don't just go away. So if you've seen that, I would be curious to know what you've seen, when you saw it, where you saw it, and do you believe it? Do you believe there's any validity to it? All right, next up, the Denver International Airport. How many of you have heard about this? Again, none of these things that I'm talking about are new, but they're so interesting, and I don't know how many people are aware of this one. So the Denver International Airport is just an absolute, you know, an absolute cornucopia of things that feed conspiracy theories. Some people believe that the Denver International Airport is home to the Illuminati. It's like their headquarters. Some people believe that it is a literal portal to hell. Some people believe that the artwork in the airport is meant to warn us all of what's coming, but they do it in a way that can, you know, they present it as art, because then they have plausible deniability. And it's just very interesting. So this airport, if you, and I've never been there, I've only seen pictures, which I will, I can include links in my description. there is artwork in the airport that is very disturbing. You know, it shows very apocalyptic scenes of, you know, everything around us burning, and people are scared and running. It's got Nazi imagery, you know, not in a glorifying way, but just, you know, reminiscent of World War II, when, you know, places were being bombed and people had nowhere to go and they were fleeing for their lives. And some people believe that those images were created as a way to kind of tell people what was coming without really saying it. And it was kind of like they were really, you know, the Illuminati, because they are apparently headquartered at Denver International Airport, is telling the world what they're going to do. And people are kind of, you know, according to the myth, kind of laughing it off. And or at least they're hoping that's what people will do. And you know, they want people to do that. They want people, according to the myth, to believe it's so over-the-top ridiculous that the Illuminati would actually put their plans in artwork and put the artwork in an airport where, you know, anybody coming through can see it. And the whole purpose of that is to create a sense of dismissal around the whole thing. Like, let's put these things in the airport and then people will dismiss it. And then when it actually happens, they'll be caught by surprise. So the theory goes. There is also the theory that there are underground tunnels and bunkers. Now, there are underground tunnels there that have been used, and some of them are still used for business relating to the airport. It goes in, you know, there are tunnels that go in between concourses. There is a now abandoned baggage claim area down there. Now, some people still believe though, that these tunnels are still in fact being used, but not by the airport. And they believe there are bunkers down there. And it is, again, part of the Illuminati. Dun, dun, dun. Yes. Now, that made me think of the movie Us. Have you seen it? It is so good. And in this movie, in the beginning of the movie, it states that there are literally hundreds of thousands of miles of tunnels in the United States that are not used. They're just there. And the question was, what are they being used for? And I just thought, oh my gosh, is Jordan Peele onto something? Has he cracked the code? And there's actually an uprising being planned by the tethered, and one day they're going to come out from their tunnels and life as we know it will end. Does he know this because he's part of the Illuminati? Highly unlikely. It's just a movie, right? So, underground tunnels, bunkers, strange artwork, and then right outside the airport is a 30-foot tall statue of a horse that is actually called, the official name of the statue is Mustang, or the Mustang, but it is known as Lucifer. And people believe that's where the supposed portal to hell is. So this statue is 30 feet tall. It has glowing red eyes. People have all kinds of theories about why those particular images were used, or, you know, why the artist used that particular thing. And it doesn't help that while the artist was working on this, back in, oh, now I don't remember the year, I think 2006, I think it was, a part of the horse actually fell off and hit his leg, and it actually ended up severing an artery, and the artist died because of this injury. So now you've got this 30-foot tall horse with glowing red eyes that killed its creator, and people think the horse is cursed. So again, now this is what I think. I think the Denver International Airport, it finds everything very amusing. You know, all these conspiracy theories are very amusing. So rather than, because I believe I read they have tried to set the record straight and tell people, no, there's nothing like that here. And people just are not wanting to hear it. So I think what happened was they were just like, you know what? Fine. We're just going to run with these conspiracy theories and let people have their fun. We are done trying to debunk them. We are done trying to refute them. And we're just going to go ahead and feed into them. So, I mean, when I looked at the images of the artwork and everything else, I just thought, oh man, these people are having fun with this notion that there are, you know, the Illuminati is there and all of these shady dealings are going on that are designed to end the world someday. It was like, oh, they're just running with this, and that's fantastic. I love it. I gotta respect that, you know. They really put everything into making sure that there is just a hint of possibility that what people are saying is true. And I think that's hilarious. So, good on you, Dallas International Airport. Nicely done. All right, the final conspiracy theory I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to get into some other things. So this is wild. I was kind of like looking up conspiracy theories, like what are the weirdest ones out there, like that I haven't really heard yet or only know a very little bit about. And I came across this theory that Frozen, the movie Frozen, was actually named Frozen because they wanted people to, when they looked up Disney Frozen, they did not want the first thing that popped up in Google or other search engines to be Walt Disney's frozen head. Now, I remember hearing when I was really, really young that Walt Disney had wanted to be, he was interested in cryopreservation, and he wanted to be frozen upon his death, you know. So, sorry, I got a little distracted there because I don't know what I'm doing. This is why I don't do makeup tutorials, because I have no business. But anyway, so I remember hearing that when I was very young and thinking, well, that's weird. But I did not hear that Frozen was like the Disney company's answer to having their founder be forever linked with having a frozen head. So the theory goes, okay, so yeah, the theory goes that, again, I got distracted. I'm really having a hard time at this moment in time. That, okay, so Walt Disney is frozen somewhere, and nobody knows where. Nobody's ever been able to say where exactly this is taking place, but they believe he's frozen. Now, Walt Disney did have an interest in cryopreservation, and he did discuss this with someone. And the person he discussed it with actually was the leader, or the, I guess, the president of the, I have notes here, and I'm going to consult my notes because I don't remember the name of the place. I can't believe I can't remember this. The Cryonic Society of California. So he actually did an interview back in 1972 and told the LA Times that, yes, Walt Disney had wanted to be frozen. He didn't quite make the cut, though. The timing wasn't right. And then weeks after Walt Disney's death, the first person ever was frozen, and that person remains on ice to this day. But that did not stop the rumor from persisting. So, fast forward. Years and years have gone by with this rumor circulating. Walt Disney's frozen head has been looked up on Google a gazillion times. And Disney was just like, you know, we're not having it. We are not having this. And they decided, hey, I know what we can do. Let's make a movie about an ice queen, and they live in a snowy place, and there's ice and frozen things everywhere. Let's call it Frozen. So when people look up Walt Disney's Frozen, they're not going to see Walt Disney's frozen head in the search bar. No, no, no. They are going to see the movie. Brilliant. So now, people saw that, and the conspiracy theorist in all of us was like, oh my gosh, they're trying to throw people off the trail. And decided that Disney's Frozen, the name of it had nothing to do with the fact that it happens in a frozen place, or that Elsa is an ice queen, or that things are frozen all throughout the movie. No, no, nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the fact that Walt Disney's frozen head is around there somewhere, and they want people to stop looking for it. Disney, of course, has denied this repeatedly. They're like, are you kidding me with this? The movie is about a frozen place and a woman who can freeze things. That's why it's called Frozen. Not because Walt Disney is frozen somewhere. I mean, he's not. But even if he was, that's not why we would make the movie. Hello? But the conspiracy theory persists, and there are still people who believe to this day that Walt Disney is frozen somewhere, even though everyone who would know has said no, that's not the case. And Disney made that movie to throw people off the scent of Walt Disney's frozen head. Would a frozen head have a scent? I don't know that it would. In all of my true crime viewing and podcast listening to and such, and so on and so forth, I've never heard of frozen heads having any fragrance, so I could be wrong. Or not any fragrance, but any scent. Could be 100% wrong about this. Kind of like I am about my eye makeup today. 100% wrong. So now we're left with the question, why do people like conspiracy theories? How do these things manage to thrive no matter how many times they're refuted, no matter how many times the people who would know have said, no, you've got it all wrong, that's not what's happening. Why do these things persist? Well, let me tell you my thoughts. First of all, I should say I'm not a professional. I'm not, I'm not a psychologist. That's what I was going for. I'm not a psychologist. I am just someone who, because of the culture I was raised in, conspiracy theories kind of ran rampant. I mean, I was raised in an Assembly of God church, a very white evangelical church. And if you know anything about white evangelicals, is boy, do they love a good conspiracy. So I was kind of raised on this idea that there were things happening all around us that looked one way but were actually another thing. So I think that, and because white evangelicalism is such a cultural influence, whether we like it or not, I think that kind of leaves us primed and ready for these ideas to kind of just run rampant in our culture. And people who, maybe they're not the best critical thinkers, maybe they have been taught to never question things and so on and so forth, they're going to embrace those things. So that's one way this happens. I think another part of it, and this is a really big part of it, is conspiracy theories give people a place to belong and a group to belong to. As I mentioned earlier when discussing Michael Jackson, I was not in a good place in my life when that theory really started to gather steam. And so it was very easy for me to latch on to this idea that, I know about something that most people don't know about, and that makes me really super special. And, I pity you if you can't see. I pity the fool who can't see that Michael Jackson is still alive. That was kind of like the general sentiment of everyone involved in that culture, or that community, I guess we could call it. In very loose terms, it was a community. So I think that people latch on to those things because it gives them a place to belong. It allows them to feel smart. A lot of people want to feel like they're the smartest person in the room. That's just how we are. We want to feel like maybe we've got a little bit of an edge over everyone else, and these conspiracy theories really make people feel like they really are smarter than everyone else, because everyone else just doesn't get it. Everyone else doesn't have the depth of insight that they have. I wish I had some insight as to where my brush that I wanted is. I'll just use something different. I almost dropped it. Okay. So it gives people a place to belong. It lets them feel smart. It lets them feel like they know just a little bit more than everyone else, and the little bit more that they know is just enough to elevate themselves a level above everybody else. And I really think that is a driving factor behind a lot of the conspiracies today concerning a certain public health epidemic or pandemic, which I'm not going to call by name because then YouTube gets all flaggy. So I'm not going to say the name, but y'all know what I'm talking about. I really think a big part of why people have latched on to the conspiracy theories about that, and there are so many of them, even if I wanted to discuss them, I couldn't even begin to do it in any intelligent way because there are just so many theories, so many conspiracy theories. But I think a lot of the reason why these conspiracy theories about that gain the traction that they do is because a lot of the people who are out there you know, sharing them and reinforcing them with their peers and on social media and stuff, if you notice, a lot of them are people who really feel that they have been disenfranchised in one way or another. They feel that nobody stands up for them, nobody thinks well of them as far as their accomplishments and so forth. They are people who have felt marginalized in a lot of ways. And I'm not talking about marginalized like, you know, the LGBTQ community or people of color and so forth. I'm talking about marginalized politically because, and I heard this a lot growing up, they believe that the machines that run the political system in this country are not for them. They are for, in fact, a group of people who believe the exact opposite of everything they believe. So they've spent a lifetime convincing themselves and anyone who will listen that they are not really part of the process and they're not really the people that America was made for. And, you know, they're kicking my God out of the schools, they're kicking him out of every public space, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes along this awful pandemic, and these conspiracy theories allow them to feel that for once they have it, they have knowledge that no one else has. And the people who don't believe them are the ones on the outside now. I really think that's a big part of it because I don't really want to get into insulting anyone. I really, really don't. But a lot of the folks that I have talked to of that mindset are not people who, oh, how can I say this? They're not the most intelligent people I've ever spoken to. And they are people who have a major grudge over the notion that they are being left out of everything, that they're being left behind by, in their minds, a country that wants to move forward in a direction that they don't feel the country should go. So the sense of belonging, I think, is a big part of conspiracy theories. I also think conspiracy theories thrive because people want to believe there is a sense of order and control over everything that we encounter in this lifetime. And it's scary for some people to acknowledge that, no, life is actually pretty random and we don't always know what's around the bend, and that can be scary. And for some people, that's so scary that they will go ahead and make up entire narratives to explain how something that looks horrible and random and disconnected from other events is actually not that at all, and there's a whole system behind this thing that happened. And I think that's especially true. So you think about celebrity deaths and the people who are like, oh, that person didn't actually die, they're still alive, hallelujah. I think it is because for some people, embracing the idea of death, especially when it happens to someone who, you know, looms larger than life. You know, they've got money, they've got fame, they've got all the material possessions they could ever want. They've got people just clamoring for their attention. They've got people who, you know, really just admire them so much. I think when something like that happens, it really scares people because they don't want to believe that life is really that far beyond their control. I mean, if you've got a celebrity who has a well-established career, they've been able to control a lot of elements of their life. There are some things they have had no control over, but for the most part, you know, they have control over a lot of what they do and where they go and who they see, other than what's required of their job. So the idea that something like that can happen to somebody who really has everything that we're told we need to shield ourselves from uncertainty, it is jarring for people. And it's easier to think that this didn't actually play out the way the media said it did, and there are all these things going on behind the scenes that the media won't talk about because either they don't know about it or they can't talk about it. It's easier to believe that than it is to believe that, you know what, life is just a random series of events sometimes, and they're not always connected. There is not always a big reason behind them. They just happen. And I think having a conspiracy theory to cling to really puts people's minds at ease about that, because they can believe that no, life is not that random, and nothing terrible that happens without somebody behind the scenes pulling the strings to make it happen. And I get that too. I think that falls in line very well with how I was raised, in that, and this isn't just an evangelical thing, but that I'm just going to speak from my own experiences. The notion that everything happens for a reason. And it's terrifying for some people to have to acknowledge that no, it doesn't. Some things do not happen for a reason. Some things just happen because they happen. And that's really all there is to it. It's just life doing what life does. And sometimes, let's be honest about it, life just kind of takes a crap all over you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just how it is. And that's terrifying for people. So conspiracy theories and other beliefs that depend on an outside influence to make them plausible really, I think, are born from a place of needing to feel a sense of control. Especially now, in a time when there are so many things happening that are outside of our control. There are always things happening outside of our control, but I think it becomes really obvious when the whole world basically had to shut down in some capacity in an attempt to control this out of control thing that we're all experiencing. So we have a sense of belonging, we have a sense of control. Why else do you think people latch on to conspiracy theories? I really do want to know what you think, because conspiracy theories are fascinating to me for lots of reasons, but not the least of which is why people believe them. Like, I like conspiracy theories. I love exploring the ideas, but I also believe that most of them are probably not true. And that brings us to another point. Every conspiracy theory out there has a seed of truth in it. And it's just enough that it makes people who really want to believe it's plausible despite any, and I mean any, evidence to the contrary. And again, that goes back to wanting to feel like the smartest person in the room, especially if you're somebody who has always been told you're not the smartest person in the room, and there are people who know more and better than you. Having a conspiracy theory to cling to lets them have that sense of, well, you'd like to think I'm not smart, but I am smart, and I know this thing and you don't, and you're an idiot for not believing it. And I'm super smart because I do believe it. So there are so many reasons why people cling to these things. But I am curious to know what you think. And what conspiracy theories have you maybe fallen into believing that later on you were like, oh my God, I can't believe I fell for that. Do you have one? Because I suspect a lot of us do. All right, in just a minute, I'm going to pause and finish this, and then I will be right back to show you my finished face. While I'm gone, think about conspiracy theories and share with me any realizations you have or any theories you have yourself. I'll be right back. And I'm back. So, what did you think about while I was gone? I want to know what your favorite conspiracy theories are. I really do. I'm fascinated by them. I also want to say, I think maybe we've given too much time to conspiracy theories just as a culture, because now they're running wild and actually having an impact on public health. So just a thought. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you liked this video, please, please like, please subscribe, please share. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Also, if you're ever curious about the products that I'm using, I do list them in the description below. If you've not looked there for past product curiosities, that's where you can check it out. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for listening to my rambling thoughts. I really do appreciate every single person who watches this so much. These videos are helpful to me, getting through the world burning down around us. And I hope they're helpful to you too. I feel like I've got lipstick on my teeth. I don't. Anyway, have a great day. Be good to yourself. Be kind to each other. And I will talk to you again very soon. Bye-bye.